Welcome. My name is Sue Landay. I'm from Trainers Warehouse, and this is Show and Share. And today we're focusing on task cards, and Nora Gerber has been a frequent participant in the Show and Share discussions and has agreed to share some of her best tips and practices with us today. Nora has been an independent contractor for over 35 years, working at UC Davis for human services and independent living programs, helping out adults and youth in foster care. She's done a lot of train the trainer training and has, and I'm delighted to have you here. So I'm not going to take up much more time. Nora, please, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you for inviting me to visit with the peeps. I love your show and shares, and I hope some of you look like familiar faces, so you come back because it works for you. Sometimes training is kind of lonely, so it's great to have people that you can visit with and exchange ideas with. So what I'd like to share with you today is only from my experience. I've got about 50 years actually overall training adults, and I use parts and pieces. I just find things in chunks works better for me than big packets and so forth. So I can only share what it is that I do, and then I want to hear from you and what you do and so forth. Wave at me if you use any kind of cards, task cards, dex cards. Anybody use those? Several people do. Good. A shout out to Jim Kane, as he mentioned a few weeks ago. Boy, at least have this in your hip pocket, because if your luggage doesn't arrive with all your props and your materials, you at least got something to work with. So I'm going to tell you a story in a few minutes of when I had to pull that deck out and do that. So let me do a screen share here and get going. I want you to know that I'm a handout person. So I've given Sue a number of handouts. If you like, who likes takeaways? Anybody like takeaways? You like to take stuff? All right, good. Yeah. So Sue's ready to post them as we go along in the chat. You're welcome to pull them out anytime while we're here, or such a brief amount of time. Maybe afterwards you want to download them and look at them. So the screen will tell you most of the story. And then we want to make sure we have time for you to start talking about how you use cards and what you do with them and ask your questions. So I'll do a screen share if you're ready. And somebody's making a lot of noise, so they should put themselves on mute. All right. There's a document called Ways and Why that Sue is going to post in chat now. And these are the ways and whys of why I use task cards. I use them live training in the classroom. Some of them I can use virtual. She has some virtual versions of them. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. I use them seated. I use them moving. Some of them are positive inspirational quotes. Some of them are questions. Some are processing prompts. All of them are good collegial conversation jump starters. That's why I mostly use them, is to get the conversation going. I use them as openers, as reinforcers, as energizers, as closers. You can fit it into your lesson plan wherever it works for you. There's card decks, there's tablets, there's post-it formats, there's all kinds of different formats of them, and I use them with adults and with young adults. I do a lot of training with independent living foster youth, and I use it with them as well. So if you want the whole wrap on this, Sue has posted whys and ways in the handout in the chat.
I'll also say that if you're looking for like the bigger print, easier to read version, there's a 3-page version. If you like everything condensed onto a front and back 2 pages, we have that also. So pick your poison.
Thank you, Sue. Yes, she formatted some of my material into 9-point font, and I went, that didn't work for those of us who are in this age bracket. So I always print nothing less than 14-point font, but she likes to put it into marketing docs. So help yourself. Either way you like it. You probably use and define task cards a number of ways. For me, what it means is something that's individual, in chunks, that it's a prompt, a question, a behavior, and that learners can manipulate them. They can move around. This is an example of a deck. Things can be individual. They can move around. They can be personal reflection. They can be shared with partners. But all of it is on content, on my content course. I rarely ever use any materials in class, but particularly these as a game or a tool. Now, I know there's lots of reasons why one would, and you would have your reasons. The most of the training I do is content based. So that's the way I focus the materials. So task card to me means there's a job for the learners to do using the card. And there's a variety of ways to use them. That's what I want to share with you today. Now, you already know this, and it goes without saying, but I just want to mention the card, the task cards, they're not the training, they're not the trainer. They're just a tool. They're just a tool to use so that I can train and get the topic going. And then I use my facilitation skills. As all of you who are trainers know, the activity itself isn't as important as the setup and the debrief. So it all has to go with the tool. You don't just throw the cards out and let people play with them. I don't. You might. I don't. Just throw them out, let them play with them. I usually have a learning point I want to make with them. I really like to engage my learners. I believe engagement leads to attention, which leads to retention, which leads to transfer training. That's where I'm always going, is transfer. I want them to take my material and take it back to their workplace. So I have a strategy that's my all-time favorite. It's called 1-2-4-all strategy. It comes in this fabulous book, The Surprising Power of Liberating Structures. Sue's going to post a bibliography later, and you can pick it up. It's now my second favorite facilitation book. I'm into Jim's as well, but it's a great facilitation book. Jim's has a lot to do with outdoor and activities, and indoor and outdoor activities. Surprising Power is mostly inside of a training room. But the strategy is called 1-2-4-all. And it's all purpose. I use it in all kinds of ways. And I'm going to model that as we go through this today. But if you want to download the description of that, I think Sue's posting that in chat now, the 1-2-4-all strategy. And the way 1-2-4-all works is that it starts with individual. Rather than just asking a question and waiting for any Yahoo to raise their hand and say the answer, I invite people to think to themselves for a moment. So I engage all brains in answering the question before they go forward. So individually, get them to think about it, to reflect, to start to practice and rehearse their own response to it. Most new information is attached to existing information. So I want them to go into their own memory banks and think about, what do I already know, think, and feel about this topic? So they're ready to have a conversation. If you ever have a problem with people responding or joining in, or you get crickets when you ask a question, start with 1-2-4-all. Start with the one and get everyone to think it through first, so they get a chance to reflect and practice. Then we move to 2-by-2, or the 2 is pair share, or just 2 people. There's a very powerful cognitive connection between 2 people looking at each other, nodding, responding, giving, and taking. So if you want to lower the risk of participating in people being in groups or speaking up in the whole room, step 2, pair share, is your most powerful reinforcement strategy. Most people will speak up with one person, even if they won't speak up in the whole group. So this is very powerful. Now you can stop right there if you want to, but there's 4 and all as well in this strategy if you want to go deeper into the topic. So individual, engaging all brains for recollection and reflection. 2-by-2, pair share, they're thinking out loud, they're rehearsing what they're going to say. And then you get in, and page 2 of that Whys and Ways has a whole bunch of different ways to do that. Standing up, seated, moving around the room in a choreographed way. I even do a speed dating version with 2 concentric circles. So they move, and they move from partner to partner to partner. There's a number of ways to do it. There's cruise and schmooze, where they can move around the room to music. Page 2 of the Whys and Ways gives you a whole bunch of different ways to do the step 2. For me, it's the most powerful reinforcement activity that we can do.
What's
If you want to
nice
take
about that, Nora, if I might break in, is that by
please do.
having so many different ways to do a 2x2 share, bringing two people together, it makes you feel like you're mixing it up, even if it's the same concept, it feels different for the experience.
That's right. And if you do it different ways with the same group throughout the day, you get a lot of variety in there, and they get to be with a lot of different people. So thank you for throwing that in. That's why I do you'll see on page 2 of the Whys and Ways, section 2, step 2 has a whole bunch of different steps in there that I've elaborated, the ways that I use it. If you want to go into a small group, that's step 4. 4 is 4 on the floor or at a table talk if they're seated, or standing. I call that the huddle. So there's corners in the room. Maybe there's a sign on the wall that has a topic and they move to the corner. There's a lot of different ways to do it, and they're elaborated also in this Whys and Way. And the final one is all, which is you come back to me now. And now we have question and answer. Maybe they do a teach back or a report out, and so forth. So 1, 2, 4, all, very powerful strategy, very, very useful. So that's the way I play with task cards. Anyone want to ask me something about that or throw in an idea?
I also noticed by the pictures that you have on the left that a task card isn't necessarily just a card. It's an activity. It's a resource. It's a tool. It could be a sticky note. It could be in anything. So very versatile.
It isn't anything. For instance, the kudos are sheets of paper. They aren't sticky on the back, but everyone can write on those. The stop, start, continue, and so forth, those are sticky notes, and they can take them with them. But then there's also the cards. And then there's my favorite, which is pocket cards, the unzippets. You rub their little eyes, they're all soft and fuzzy. I love their little eyes. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out. What I mean by a task card is an individual chunk of information that is manipulatable, that's broken down into pieces that the learners can work with one little piece at a time and exchange with each other. That's what I mean. And you give them a task to do, talk about it or reflect upon it or share it with others, make up a story about it, and so forth. Thanks, Sue.
Nora, I have a question. So when do you decide? Hi, by the way.
Hi.
Hi. So when do you decide how far you go with the 1, 2, 4 all strategy? So I know sometimes, yeah.
Okay, it's time, but more for me, it's outcome. What do I want to get out of it? What do I want people to get out of it? And if I really want them to dig in and get their teeth into it and really reflect, I'll spend more time and go on down. If I just want to get a conversation going, introduce the topic, get people moving a little bit, get them to be comfortable in the room, I might stop at 2, 1, 2. If I want them to go further and I really want them to look at it, I'll go to 4. Do I have a 2-hour training? Do I have a 6-hour training? Do I have a 3-day training? That also impacts it. So first priority for that is, what is my outcome? What do I want to have happen from this tool? And second is, what kind of time do I have? That's really what it boils down to. Sue and I have an activity for you today planned that I said to her this morning. I just went through my show again, and we're not going to get to the activity. I know we're not, because I want to go through some more of these ideas. So thank you for that question, Carissa. Does that answer your question?
Yes, perfectly. Yep, thank you.
People do that. Jump right on in. All right, here's some of the benefits. For one is it focuses the learner's brain on my course content. It promotes connections between the material, connections between each other, connections with me. It's engagement. As I mentioned earlier, for me, participation is attention, which leads to retention, which leads to transfer of training. And that's always what I'm about, is getting them to take my material and put it to work. And it's also ergonomics. There's a whole bunch of material around about, in fact, there's a great book in the bibliography Sue will post called Training in Motion, about getting up and moving and all of the benefits of that. So it gets oxygen to the brain. So here's a lot of reasons why I play with task cards. They offer collegial conversations. They jumpstart the conversations. There's connections. They're usually upbeat. All of the prompts on them are positive and upbeat. Hardly any of them are negative. Sometimes I pull out negative ones if I don't like them. If I don't want the folks to focus on the downside, I pull those cards out of the deck. I just don't even go there. They're handy, they're portable, they're individual, they're customized. Again, depending on what my content is, I can decide which of the cards I want to use and use more of. There's flexible levels to them. I can do short and simple and quick, or I can make it longer and of a higher order thinking. So there's a lot of things that go with it. But here's one of my favorite tips is Bowman's brain science principles. Sharon Bowman has 6 brain science principles that are easily practiced. And we'll go through those in a minute. I have a slide on that. But here's what I could almost always count on for the cards. They involve movement, they involve talking, they involve writing. Sometimes they're shorter and they have different. So 4 out of 6 almost always the task cards can use. And I'm into using neuroscience. I'm into using the research, and luckily Sharon Bowman did a lot of the neuroscience research for us. I'll show you that Bowman's 6 in a few minutes. So what about you? Anybody else chime in? How do you use task cards? Is there any other benefit? Anyone wants to chime in and let us know? Yes, Lynn, unmute.
I think it's an icebreaker, it's a nice icebreaker to just put everybody at ease, get people talking. That's the way I would use them to start out.
Yes, it introduces your topic. It gets people up and moving. It gets them engaging with each other. Thank you, Patty. Lynn, was your hand up too? Did you?
Yes, I don't have any of these specific cards, but I have a set that has pictures on them, and I like to do a storytelling game. So we make a group story with the pictures. So I'll start with once upon a time there was a magical duck, and I'll hold my picture up, and then each of the stories have to be linked together.
That's great. Exactly. And that goes right in. There's the climber cards too. Sue can post where those are available as well, climber cards, but also any pictures like that. And again, that's one of the Bowman 6 is visuals, images. So very powerful way to use it. Thanks for sharing that, Lynn. Anybody else?
I'm sorry, Lynn, is that more like of an icebreaker? Is it a team building game? Is it a debrief? How do you, to tie back to the material, or how do you find yourself using that experience?
I use it more for cohesion, bringing groups together because I work a lot with kids. So just bringing that cohesion together and stretching their imagination. I used it last year with the kids with autism, and some kids were pretty good with this imagination, some were not. But it was just a practice in doing that. My team loves it. I did it with my staff team as well, just for laughs and cohesion building and just coming together as a group.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. Here's Bowman 6. And they are in this book right here. Again, Sue, maybe Sue can go ahead and post the bibliography if you want to, Sue. It's toward the bottom, but you probably have it there. It's called Using Brain Science to Make Training Stick. Anything by Sharon Bowman is a valuable tool as far as I'm concerned. She's got about 8 books that she's written. But in this particular one, she talks about these 6 brain-based principles. Get them moving, get them talking, use some images, writing tops reading, shorter tops longer, different tops same. So again, this is posted in chat if you want this. This is a infographic that Trainers Warehouse puts out. If you want to see more examples, go on bowperson.com and bowperson.com, and you'll see many of the people who work with Sharon Bowman have also produced materials and products that they share. So if you're interested in knowing how to engage learners, you want to know ways that it's done that are based in neuroscience, you can't go wrong with 6 brain principles. You can't go wrong with Bowman. Now let's talk about unzip it packets. It's my fave. I'm going like this because these eyes are fuzzy. I got to tell you, this is the most adorable little thing. Anyone have these? Anyone use unzippets? I love the unzippets. Now here, the whole story is on the back of the unzip it. So I'm going to read you the story because this is what unzippets are about. Feeling shy about speaking out or not sure what to talk about? It's easy to start the flow and have discussions bloom and grow. Unzip the pouch and pick a topic, big and broad or microscopic. A prompt doesn't need to dig too deep or one that makes you take a leap. Go ahead, reach in and pick it, read the prompt, and then unzip it. So I love the double entendre of the unzip it. It's a fun little pack. I have a couple of the packs, and whenever I'm going to use it, I usually divide it into 2 or 3 of the pockets so they can pass them around the room and they can actually reach inside and pull them out. They like to reach inside and pull them out, and they like to feel the fuzzy eyes. It's the cutest darn thing in the world. And that poem.
I did not pay Nora to say any of this.
No, you can tell. I guess you can tell. I'm a big fan of these unzippets. When I found when this arrived in my mailbox, I went, oh my gosh, it's got eyelashes and it's got fuzzy. Oh my goodness. So I'm a very kinesthetic person. So I do adore these and they're fun. So no, she didn't pay me to do it, but it is a wonderful tool.
Nora, I'm not familiar with them. Where do you get these?
Well, you're on the Trainer's Warehouse Show and Share.
Yep. So, can we put a link in the chat?
Yeah. I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And by the way, go online and look at the catalog. A lot of the information you're going to see on these slides come right out of that online catalog. I quote them because I get a lot of my information out of there. They don't give you all the cards. What they do is they give you the categories of the cards and so forth. So here are the 4 that I use all the time: emotional intelligence, stress management, change management, which they call onward and upward, and then the get happy at work. So those are 4 of my favorites that I like to use. There's a bunch of other ones depending on what your course content is, what it is you're training. And so there's some topics there. And Sue, what did you want to say about exchange and thumb balls and all?
Yes, so Nora is definitely a fan of the card decks because of how she likes to use them. All of the content and all of the prompts on those are also on these things that we call thumb balls. Where you catch the ball and read the prompt under your thumb. There are people who love these because they're so kinesthetic. I think that Nora doesn't like that they can also be used as projectiles. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you. And so those are also online. We've also used, again, that same content and made them available as PowerPoints if you're doing virtual presentations, virtual learning experiences, interaction. And if you want all of the content that we've ever created, it's in a tool called the Exchange, the Trainer's Exchange. And you can pick up to 6 categories and kind of use them all in conjunction and make a game of that. So much content is there to help you, supercharge the training that you're doing.
I have a question on the unzippets. Are they written? Are they okay for kids? Are they what grade levels?
Yeah, so most of the topics, Nora's pulled out some of the ones that are more kind of corporate, like emotional intelligence, stress, change management, happiness at work. There are also some change shaped by our past, getting to know you. I would say because our clientele are primarily corporate trainers, they do have a bent towards being a little bit more mature. It's not that they're inappropriate for kids, but there are thumb balls made for children. And there's the company that makes them and that makes ours for us is called Answers in Motion. I, they have a couple of different vendors who make content with different audiences in mind. So if you're looking for a thumb ball, you may, for children, ours may or may not be the best depending on the age, like teaching.
What about the unzip it cards? That's mainly what I'm asking about.
Oh, the cards. The cards are all ours, so it is primarily corporate focused.
Well, corporate or educational.
Or right, but
work
not
at
for young kids, I don't think. I don't know. Nora, how young of kids have you used them with?
I use them with teenagers.
Yeah.
Here's with teenagers. Here's a couple of examples of the getting happy at work, because it does talk about work, so that puts it into that older bracket. I lose track of time when I'm an act of kindness you recently received. What makes my heart sing? Those are some of the typical kinds of prompts that are on the Get Happy at Work packet.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, the nice thing about a deck, just like Nora said, also is that you can pull out the ones that don't pertain to you. You could also have a couple of different decks and pull cards, from several decks and put them all in one pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can also put plants in the audience. You can put your own cards in there as well.
Yeah, we often do send a couple of blanks with each deck so that you can create your own, your own questions on there.
On the online catalog, they most of the Unzip-Its have a set of categories that the prompts are in. And so this is the one for the Get Happy at Work. Here's the prompts. So these just seem to be the categories. So again, when we do 1, 2, 4, all, these are the groupings that I put people into. So one of the things I want to point out is how handy they are in the moment. I want to tell you a true story. I was training a course called Revitalizing the Human Services Professional. I was maybe, I don't know, a few minutes, 10 minutes into the course, and the lights went off. All the power went off, no PowerPoint, no windows in the room. It was a nice day outside. Somebody came down the hall and said, it'll be 30 minutes before we get them back on. So I grabbed the pocket, I grabbed my chimes, and we went outside. And I had people pair up and reach in and pull out a card out of the pocket, and they'd swap and they'd talk for 4 minutes. I'd ring the chimes, they'd move around, talk again, and then swap cards. So then that person was then carrying that prompt to another place and so forth. So for good 20 minutes or so, they just swapped these cards and started talking about my content, because it was revitalizing the human services professional. So Getting Happy at Work was the perfect deck to have with me on that. And that really saved me, because that was 20 minutes. We would have just sat there in the dark or just walked around outside, or they would have taken a break and maybe come back. So it's a good way to have them handy, have them in your hip pocket, have them ready to go.
Nora, let's just do a check-in with folks. I know that we're coming up on half past. I know you also have a lot more to touch base about. Are folks able to stick around a lot for a little longer? Or I suppose if you can't, we understand if you need to go, but let's press on.
All right. Yes. Thanks for joining if you can. So the emotional intelligence deck is one I use quite a bit. Here are the categories. If you work with emotional intelligence, you work with leadership, you work with people who have to get along with people. The lesson plan, the 1, 2, 4 all lesson plan for using the emotional intelligence cards are in chat. And so is the competency framework. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but there's an Daniel Goleman emotional intelligence framework, and that's available to you in chat. There's also available through Trainers Warehouse coaching cards, which take it a little bit deeper than just the conversations. So deeper conversations, those are the categories, and those again are in the framework. Kudograms, whole bunch of different versions of those, different colors. You can see on the screen, the color determines what the focus of the prompts are, but these are particular behaviors that people use, and we want them to use. And they're ways to thank people, to acknowledge people, to express gratitude. I have a lot of fun with these. And what I generally do is I have them start with writing one of themselves first, to express kudos to themselves, and then they can pair share. And then if they want to write, they can write to somebody else. So there's a PS on there. Those of you who are millennials or younger may not know. Anybody who does know, shout out. What's a PS? What's a PS? Anybody know?
BTW.
Huh?
BTW.
What does PS stand for?
Postscript.
Postscript. A little bit of a
That
note.
was interesting.
They call it.
also.
They
She
call it
answered-
by the way.
By
By the
the
way
way.
now.
By the way.
BTW.
Okay, postscript. Okay, so here are some of the categories. Here are the prompts that are in the Kudo, the green one, for instance. When I teach growth mindset, when I teach revitalize, I'd like to use growth mindset deck, the green packets. So here are the topics that are in there. We're not going to do the activity because, of course, we knew we wouldn't, because we wanted to have you be engaged in asking questions and so forth. But here are the kinds of categories. And I have people write one to themselves first, and then that's of the 1, 2, 4, all. They read it, they select one, they recall a story of when they used that, and they focus on what was the positive outcome of that. How did they feel about that? If you want that lesson plan, 1, 2, 4, all for Kudo Green Kudos, or any of the kudos, that's also posted in chat. Pair share would be they tell a story to one another. What do you believe is the positive outcome? We spend more time than a few minutes. We're not going to do that here.
And I have
Or
to say, I love this also, Nora, because I always envision these as being used of just like, you know, tearing one off and giving one to one person. And so I love how you've integrated this into an experience and a growth and learning experience among a larger group.
Thank you, Sue. And what it does is it reinforces those behaviors, because growth mindset isn't just a fixed growth. There's theory around that, and you can have information about that. But what I like is that people realize that it's behaviors. It's how you act. It's what you do that makes the difference. It's things you do. You come prepared. You take a risk. You correct your own mistake. These are behaviors that we want to be promoting as growth mindset behaviors. So that's why I like this particular one. All of them I like for that, but this one I particularly like when I'm teaching mindsets.
And this is another good one for youth and for kids.
Yep, it is. So is the values one, a good one for them. So then come back to all and the 1, 2, 4, all. They can summarize what were lessons learned from that, but also then I have them take the sheet and do a wannabe. What's one you'd like to set a goal for? It's something you don't do that much that you'd like to do more of. So then they set their own goal using it. So again, that lesson plan is in the chat if you want it. And the last piece I want to share are the stop, start, continue, and change deck. Start, stop, continue, and change. Now, these are Post-its. And the way I use these is I give them out early on. Everyone has one of each, and then they're out on the table. People can take more. And this is their action plan for the day. So I encourage them to be writing on these throughout the day. And again, there's activity options. I think there's about 6 or 8 ways to use them, again, in chat if you want to use these particular documents. But their action plan, they're colorful, they're fun, they're Post-its. And the best thing about them is they go back to work and they can post it around their workstation to remember how it is that they wanted to be using them. I use the change one. This is my feedback at the end of the day. I have them take the change one and write me a note about something they got out of the day, about the way they're going to, something they're going to change in their behavior to enhance their workplace behavior. And I stand at the door, I always do anyway, and shake people's hands and thank them for joining me. And then I ask them to hand me an exit ticket. That's their ticket out of the room, is the change. And then I get some instant feedback about the impact that the course had. So, stop share.
Good job, Nora. That was a load.
That's a load. All right, questions, comments, fill in, chime in.
I'm impressed with the versatility of how you use all of these tools and how you can take one tool and find 10 different ways to use it for different moments in the class, for different learning objectives, for different groups of students. And I would just say bravo. That's inspiring to me.
Thank you. And for me, it's economics as well. Once I purchase a tool, I want to be able to use it a variety of ways, multiple times. I don't know about your budget, but my budget is such that it comes right out of my pocket. So I want to make sure I can use it multiple times. Anyone else chime in? Using task cards, using this whole 1, 2, 4 all, using
Jim, you
both.
unmuted. Did you have something? No.
I'm just impressed with Nora's energy around these things. That's what really carries it for me.
Excellent.
Nora, so in a training, let's say it's 2 hours, how often would you typically pull in one of these task cards?
Oh, probably once. If I
Okay.
only have 2 hours, it's probably my opener, it's my wake up, it's get together, it's get up and move. Sometimes it's really good as an energizer. I often use it if I have a 6 hour, I use it when they come back for lunch because it's a sponge. Some people don't come back right on time, but also it's an energizer. It brings them back into the room together after lunch. If I see that they're slumping, I might pick it back up and use them that way. But in 2 hours, I would use it probably as an opener, or I could use the closer. This 1, 2, 4 all for 2 hours would be perfect throughout the whole time. And they're writing as they go along. This whole action planning at the end of the course, that's just wasted time. They're already planning their dinner, they're packing their keys up, they're gone. So I think that the cycle of learning, what, so what, now what? The now what are these stop change tickets at the end. And I want them writing those throughout. As they're hearing something they want to stop doing, start doing, continue doing, change doing, I want them writing on those tickets throughout. So a 2 hour course, I would use these easily. And again, please remember, it always depends on what are your outcomes. What do you have in mind? What are your goals? What are your instructional goals? What do you want people to get out of it? Again, it's just a tool. It isn't the course. Depends on how many other materials I have. It's just a tool, but it's a lively tool. It gets people up, it gets them moving, it gets them interacting, it gets them breathing, something to see, something to do, something to move. It uses all the learning style modalities. That's why I like them. It brings things to life. You can only, I don't know about you, but I can only go so far with a packet of materials and then ho hum, ho hum. So I want it to be more lively. I want it to be more engaging.
Excellent.
And then my last question is that I think you mentioned something about some online versions.
Yes.
Sue?
Yes. So right now, the Unzip It content is online. We have a bunch of online team building tools as well. The Start, Stop, Continue, Change is not online right now. For the kudos notes, I put together a PDF form version of that. We haven't yet started to market that as a tool, and we always have to be a little bit careful. Like sometimes we can, if we just post it, it would make it very easy for someone to just replicate it. So we need to be a little bit careful, but we may be able to set that up as a download for a small fee or something like that, if that's of interest to people. So if so, like email me or give me a thumbs up or something like that. Were there any other specific tools that you're looking for to be virtual?
No, you answered my question. Thank you.
All
I
right.
do have a question about the shape by our past.
Yeah.
Can you give me some examples of what those cards say or what they're about?
Yeah. Just 1 second. So as Nora said, there are, we used to put on our website all of the prompts because we thought, oh, people want to know exactly what's on all of them. And then we kind of realized that it made it really easy for people to, especially with AI, right, to pull all of the content for everything. So we created categories of sort of what to expect for each of those. But Shape to Wear Past has a high school regret, a memorable birthday, a memorable school vacation, a scary thing that happened to you, a stressful experience you lived through, a time you went to the hospital, describe your group in high school, turning point in your life, how you spent your summers, after school time, something you hated as a kid, where you
Okay,
lived as
that's
a
good.
child, yada, yada.
Okay.
And
And
be mindful of trauma
Trauma?
with. You want to be mindful that are you getting people to start to reveal something that you're not ready. You're opening a can of
Yeah.
worms. You're not ready to
I think it will help.
support
You
them.
can
So,
also give people an out to say, if you don't feel comfortable, grab another card.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right?
And the common ground, can you give me
Common
just a few
ground.
seconds?
Yeah, hold on. And that, okay, hold on, I'll give you a sense. Common ground. Okay, here we go. I'm just pulling up my Word documents that have all of them. Okay, so passions, favorite hobbies, a way I relax, favorite foods to cook, prized possession, favorite shows, what your perfect day looks like, the people in your life, who's most important to you, for good advice, who do you turn to, family members you're closest to, wishes, dream vacation, something you'd like to learn, something you're proud of, your claim to fame, how you spend money. Things like
so
that.
Okay.
I would use those if it's a long-term course where people are going to be working together over time. Use it for team building, people working together over time. It's because those are getting to know you, finding common ground, getting familiar with each other.
Mhm.
So it isn't as content-based as, for instance, emotional intelligence and so
Right.
forth. So just again, always it has to do with what's your topic, what are you tasked with training, and then what do you
Right.
want to get out of it. They're all good prompts. It just, you've got to pick and
Right.
choose the ones that are going to work for your context.
Right. And the stress management?
The stress management. Okay,
Onward and upward. No, that's not stress management.
sorry, 1 sec. Stress management, where is it? There it is. Where you find your favorite quiet space, is saying sorry hard for you? How long can you comfortably unplug? Who do you hope will cut you some slack? In what activities do you lose track of time? How much sleep do you get? What sorts of exercise is enjoyable? What are your most dreaded household chores? Do you prefer company or solitude? What relaxes you? How do you deal with email? Favorite time wasters, comfort foods? So,
Okay.
looking at both sources of stress and kind of digging into that in interesting ways, and also understanding like what you can do to manage and
And so if you'll post a document H, this is the action plan for it. So this is the action plan I use when I do stress management. It has all the categories. Again, the categories for the cards are online, so you can see what the categories are. And so this is where I have people capture. I also use those categories to cross-check my content. I have my lesson plan, I have my material, and then I look at the cards and I think, is there any category I'm not talking about that I could be talking about? So it's a good way to sort of cross-check and add value to your own materials. So if you want to know the categories in stress management, Sue just posted that one for you.
Okay.
And did you post the bibliography yet, Sue?
yes, I did.
Right, I think that's all our docs.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? Well, let me say thank you so much, Nora. You really just nailed it. And thank you so much for sharing all of those thoughts.
Thanks for giving me the chance to do so.
Absolutely.